Hello BookTube, today I am bringing you my April wrap-up. I have read 9 books this month. Now admittedly a lot of them are short because I am realising that I need to get out more. Just a thought. Anyway, on to the wrap-up. So, the first book I read, you've probably heard me talk about this a lot, Extremely Loud, Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer. I'm not going to say much, because as I say, I've spoken about this quite a lot. I have done a review, which I will link down below, and it's amazing. Read it, that's all I got to say. The next book was not so great. It was Alice Walker's Now is the Time to Open Your Heart. I bought this because I watched a documentary on Alice Walker, and I thought, I've never read The Colour Purple in full, but I've never read anything else of hers, and wasn't really aware that she'd done much else, but she has got a few other books. So I bought this one, which is all about spirituality and a writer trying to find her spiritual side. All very good things. This is the worst book I've read in a long time. I ended up skipping through a large majority of it and still not missing anything. It's basically, I think, it's a case of write what you know, going a bit wrong, because I feel like, because Alice Walker, I think it's pretty much her life, and an adventure she went on. I mean, it doesn't say that anywhere, but that's the feeling I got, and I know she has gone into spirituality and whatnot, and I felt that because she knew that story, and she knew the characters, she didn't put enough information in to flesh them out and make them real characters to us. Poor, very poor, yeah. Next, I read Birdsong by Sebastian Faulks, which, I know, shame on me, I haven't read it yet. This is about, for those of you who don't know, about the First World War, and it follows, well, it's in 3 sections, really. It follows, what's his name? Stephen Raisford, who goes to war, and we see him before the war, like, years before when he's a young man. Then we see him in the war, and then in sections as well, we see his granddaughter, I think it was, who is sort of trying to find out about his life. He's passed away and she's trying to find out about his life in the war, really. I liked Stephen's story. I liked the bit about the war. I've never read a war book. It's never really interested me, and I have to say I put off reading this for so long because it was about the war. But I really enjoyed the war bit, actually, and it's really harrowing and just shocking, but it was really effectively done and really, really nicely written. The only thing I didn't like was the granddaughter's story. I didn't feel it was necessary, because we first meet her about 3/4 of the way, halfway through. It flashes forward to the future and it's her little section, and then we meet her again at the end, but I just didn't feel like there was any purpose in her story. I wanted to get back to Stephen, and I felt the World War section of the book would have been enough. It didn't need the other stuff. So, I mean, it's a good read. I would recommend it if you haven't read it. But, as I say, better without the side story bits, I think. Next, I read Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone by J.K. Rowling. I haven't read this since I was about 9, and I got them all for Christmas, so I thought I'd give it a go. It was good, obviously. There's not much I can say about this. I have to say, I didn't realise how short it was, and actually, I think the main bit where they go down to get the Philosopher's Stone started like 20 pages from the end, and I sort of thought to myself, there's a lot that's going to happen in these 20 pages. So yeah, I felt it was all a lot more rushed than I remembered it, maybe because I've seen the film since I read the book, I don't know. But yeah, very rushed, but there we go. It was good, I enjoyed it. I really liked the bit, actually, where Harry went to Diagon Alley to buy all his bits. It was so magical and exciting, and just, oh! So yeah, that was good. Then I read Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho. This has been on my shelf for a long time, and I've been putting it off. I started reading it a long while ago and just didn't enjoy it. It's a lot about American society and sort of ridiculing that, and that's not really my cup of tea. I like books about psychos, but it's very all over the place. It's a bit strange. It's meant to be strange. It is good. I enjoyed it overall. I got into it a lot more than I thought I would. It took me a while to read, because it is quite a dense book. You have to sort of concentrate and, yeah. But it's basically about Patrick Bateman, who is sort of a high-flying society man in America. They're all sort of high-flying businessmen, and they're all his friends, and they're all rich and ridiculously so, and sort of it's all about how, everybody's interchangeable, and they keep seeing people and saying, oh, that's such and such. No, it's not, that's such and such. And, they keep getting everybody confused because everybody's just the same. And, Patrick turns into a mass murderer. I know it was meant to be a statement about ridiculing society, but I found it just a bit unbelievable. I know it's not meant to be believable, but he sort of just does it, and there's no repercussions. At one point he has an armed chase with the police, and yet he goes home and it's never mentioned again. I just felt that was a bit weird. There is one point where a taxi man says to him, oh, I've seen you on the wanted posters, but that's the only hint that the outside world really knows what he's doing. I enjoyed it. It was a bit odd. Not my favourite read, but I'm glad I've read it, if you know what I mean. I have to say, warning, there is some very graphic murders in this. Very, very graphic. There's a point with a rat up the vagina. Yeah, that happens. Anyway, moving on. Next, I read The Shock of the Fall by Nathan Filer. I have also reviewed this, which I will link down below. Beautiful, beautiful book. And that is all I have to say about that. And then I read Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I enjoyed this, I really did, because I was sort of thinking it was going to be a bit like 1984, and I found 1984 a bit hard to get into and enjoy. I just found that the world didn't really work for me, personally, and the story wasn't amazing. Like, I liked the concept, but that was it. Whereas with this, I enjoyed reading it. It was an easy read. It was nice. I liked the world and everything, and the idea of it is amazing. For those of you who don't know, it's basically a utopia. It's sort of the opposite of dystopian novel, really, because the world has been made perfect. Everyone has this drug that makes them happy. Nobody has to suffer anymore. They're all just pampered to. Nobody has to have children anymore. They can just have sex with whoever they want. Children are designed in test tubes, and their lives are just basically sorted for them. But obviously there's some people who aren't happy with the utopia. There's aspects of the world that aren't in the utopia. They aren't considered the privileged, I suppose, so they're sort of living on the outskirts and things like this, and it's sort of just about the underlying problems with the world, really. I liked it, I really did, until the last 30 pages, and then I felt like it was a rush. But I have to say it's very, very short for the sort of depth of the meaning it tries to convey. It doesn't start till here in this book, so it's only that long, about just over 200 pages, I think. 215 pages or so. So it's very short for the amount of stuff that's in there, and I felt like it could have done with being 100 pages or so longer, or maybe even just 50 pages longer, because I felt like there was a bit of a jump at the end where suddenly we were somewhere else, and from then on I was just sort of put off because I thought, well, how did we get here, but I definitely recommend it. It's one of those books I think you should read. I really liked it. It's a really clever concept. As I say, I just think it needed a little bit more at the end. Then I read Nicholas Sparks' The Notebook. I have seen this film. I used to watch it every week when I was younger, and I've never actually read the book. I've owned it for a while, but just never got around to it. I think because I know the film, I sort of was put off about reading the book because I already knew what was going to happen. It's quite short as well, which surprised me when I picked it up, but actually now that I've read it I can understand why. It's strange, actually. I think this is the one case I would say watch the film before you read the book. I never say that, and I don't think that's a good idea generally, but with this I really think it worked more as a sort of accompaniment to the film. I don't know if I hadn't watched the film, I don't think I would have enjoyed it, because I don't feel the characters would have been fully fleshed out for me just from the novel. I think the film is a real feat because they've added so much that wasn't in the book. The book basically joins Ali and Noah when Ali goes back to see Noah to tell him she's engaged, which happens halfway through the film. So the whole love story is pretty much designed by the filmmakers. I mean, we see glimpses of it because they sort of read letters to each other and stuff and sort of go over old times, but we don't see that much of it. And there's also, so half of this I'd say is probably when she goes back to see Noah, and the other half is in the old people's home when they're older, obviously. I thought there was a lot more covered in the book about sort of Alzheimer's and the effect that has, which I thought was really nice. But I feel like that was definitely the main focus of this book, rather than in the film. That's sort of just the end of the story sort of thing. It's less of a deal, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I'd say read it, but I would say watch the film first, because I don't think I would have enjoyed it if I didn't know the characters already, if you know what I mean. Sorry. And then I read Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut. This was my first Kurt Vonnegut, and I have to say it wasn't at all what I expected, because it was easy to read and it wasn't dense at all. It was just an easy read. I read it in a day, literally. I mean, it's only short, but yeah, really quick. So this follows, what's his name? A man who we are told to call Jonah. I think his real name's John. He does tell us that as well, but he likes the name Jonah. And he is basically, it's going to sound really weird to describe. He's basically trying to find one of the fathers of the atomic bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima, and find out basically what happened to him on the day the bomb was dropped. So he sort of contacts the family and things like this. Things take a bit of a turn. He finds out other stuff about the inventor, and that kind of becomes a sideline to the story. I think basically this is just a bit of a it's a bit of a ridiculous book, but it's meant to be, because it's sort of ridiculing everything, and it really ridicules a lot of religion and things, and sort of says, you know, like there's a religion in this called Boccanism, which is sort of probably the main focus of the book, really. And in Boccanism, you know, there's the Book of Boccanon, and it says basically, you know, this whole book is lies. Oh, it says it on the top, the little quote, all of the true things I'm about to tell you are shameless lies. And it basically, you know, ridicules the fact that other religions do that and claim it's truth and whatnot. Yeah, I enjoyed this. It was good. I'd recommend it. I'm going to read Slaughterhouse 5 next. I sort of didn't know which to read first, but I thought Slaughterhouse 5 is kind of his most well-known. And I've been told, you know, you shouldn't start on the most well-known, because that is obviously going to be the best in most circumstances. So if you read that, you're going to be comparing everything else to it. So start with the smaller books and then work up to the best known one. Obviously it's not always going to be the best one, but generally it is. So yeah, and I think that's good advice. So I mean, Cat's Cradle is pretty well known as well, but yeah, Slaughterhouse 5 I think is definitely the most well known. There's a little quote in the end here that I wanted to read to you, just to sort of give you, because I don't really know how much I can say about this and make sense. So I wanted to give you just a taste of the feeling of the book. It says, I walked away from Frank just as the books of Boccanon advised me to do. Beware of the man who works hard to learn something, learns it, and finds himself no wiser than before, Boccanon tells us. He is full of murderous resentment of people who are ignorant without having come by their ignorance the hard way. Which I think is amazing. So yeah, that's everything I read in April. Too much, admittedly. I never thought I'd say that, but I'm just beginning to realise I don't do anything else, because I'm like, got a book at home, got to read it. So yeah, I should start going out more. Anyway, bye!